Hey, welcome to Digging Deeper. As we look at more and more of the scriptures in 1st and 2nd Samuel, trying to pick up the full story of what's going on in these books of the Bible. So we've been talking about how David is running from Saul and he's stuck in the wilderness. Now, before he gets stuck in the wilderness, as he starts to run away from Saul, the first place he goes after visiting Samuel is to go to the temple. He goes to the tabernacle, actually. And at the tabernacle, it's in Nob, and there's these priests there serving before the Lord, taking care of the tabernacle. And there's a guy named Ahimelech there. And David comes to Ahimelech. And what I want to point out about their interaction in 1 Samuel 21 is that David comes and does not let Ahimelech know that he's being pursued by Saul. Instead, he says that he's on official business. It's very important and that he needs to leave quickly. He asks if there's any food. And so David ends up getting holy bread of the presence. That's only supposed to go for the priests. Interestingly enough, Jesus talks about this very bread in the Gospels when the people of his time were like, hey, Jesus, why don't you wash your hands like the law says? Why don't you follow the rules that the Bible lays out? And Jesus says, what about David? When he and his men fled from Saul, he went and he got holy bread that only the priests were supposed to eat, but he ate it. How did he not break the law? What's going on there? And he's trying to say there's something that supersedes this ceremonial law that you think, and it's the work of God himself. So he gets the bread of the presence, and he also gets the sword of Goliath. So this is really cool because as he flees, I don't know why the sword of Goliath is here at the tabernacle, because David took it for himself. So we know at some point David came to the tabernacle and left the sword there as a memorial for God, as an offering to God. He gets the sword of Goliath back here in 1 Samuel 21. Now, as he flees, then he goes to the Philistine army, which he's been beating. Now he's trying to maybe be a warrior for the other side. Like, hey, I'm done with Saul. Why don't I work for you now? Doesn't work out so great. The people are like, this guy was like beating us. Are we sure we want him on our team? And so then he acts a little crazy and just he runs. And 1 Samuel 22 says he ends up living in the wilderness. All of his family members come to him. Remember how his family was like kind of against him when he went to battle with Goliath. But here his family has come to see his heart and his persecution, and they rally around him. Not just his family, but it says all these people who are discontented or bitter in their soul. David starts to gather these people around him there in the wilderness, even as he's kind of worried and afraid for his life. Now, on the other side, we have Saul, who's now hunting for David. He's given up pursuing enemies, now just goes after David, this guy who has been faithful to him, who's been a follower of him, who's been doing good for him, and he turns on him. And in 1 Samuel 22, Saul hears from this guy named Doeg the Edomite, his herdsman, that David went to the tabernacle and David met with Ahimelech. Now, David did not let Ahimelech in on what was going on, but Saul calls Ahimelech to account. He says, why did you help David? He's like, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know what was going on, but I would have helped David anyway, because who is more faithful to you than David? Well, Saul doesn't like hearing that. So Saul orders that his men put to death Ahimelech, the priest of God. And not just Ahimelech, all of his family and all the priests, and not only them, the whole city. His people won't do it. Only one guy will do it, Doeg the Edomite. And what's horrifying about this is, if you remember back, Saul gets rejected from being king because he refused to destroy the king of Amalek, and they take the best of this stuff for themselves. But here, when he's pursuing David, he's willing to kill all the priests of the Lord and put to death their whole family and destroy their whole city in pursuit of David. So Saul, unwilling to kill the Amalekite king, he ends up killing all the priests of Nob and destroying their whole community. You see the full turn right here in the wilderness. David, lonely, left out to dry. People who go with him are killed. And the only ones gathering around him are those who are bitter in their soul, discontented. And Saul continuing further in his wickedness. You keep on listening to hear more about how this wilderness journey goes for David and for Saul.